What's going on, man? Welcome back to the basement. I'm Ron, and it's Thursday morning, which means it's time to work the trades, work the lines, kick the tires in your league. So today we have my top must-buy and sell trade targets for Week 6 of the fantasy football season. We have a bunch of buys, a bunch of sells, about 10 players total to talk through when it comes to trades. So we have a lot to talk through. Let's not waste any time. If you enjoy, make sure you get down below, subscribe, leave a like. Let's go.
Stones, like this froze, ice cold, ice around my body like I'm frozen. She gon' let me.
Also, just a heads up, this is a different angle than we're usually in. It's just because, like, you can see here, like, there's just so much sunlight that's coming in. Like, there's sunlight on the couch there. I was just getting beams of sunlight on me, and it was just messing up the video. It's the morning. I don't know. The sun comes in differently sometimes. This is where we're at. Ignore the clutter that's all over this part of the video. Winnie might be in the background over here. It happens to the best of us. But I will say I don't mind getting the Brodeur jersey in the background. I think Devils opening day today, so that is exciting. Now, let's talk through our trade targets for Week 6. First up, this is not a shocking one or like a crazy one at all. We're not going to spend too much time here. But it's Bijan Robinson, okay? This is a luxury buy. I'm fully aware that most sharp leagues with good managers would have zero intention of trading away Bijan Robinson, but some people might be getting impatient, all right? They drafted this guy, top 6 overall some places. Some people drafted him, just in the first round in general. He hasn't hit 20-plus PPR points since Week 2. He's the RB9 right now on just 16.4 points per game. He's had an unspectacular, he's had highlight reel plays, but in terms of production, it's been fine. He's been a back-end RB1, which is fine, but it's not quite what you drafted him for. Now, he is coming off probably his worst game of the season so far from a fantasy football perspective. And to me, it's just a blip on the radar. Like weeks 1 through 4, this is a utilization report from Fantasy Life. They have a great tool over there. Dwayne McFarland does great work. And you can see his snaps, rush attempts, route percentage. His snaps in rush attempt share were climbing, right? 65, 77 to 80. 75 in Week 4, but the rush attempt share was climbing as well, where it went from 38%, 48%, 56%, 67%, and then kind of came down. Before then, the routes were in like the 70% plus territory. To me, I think Week 5 was just kind of a abnormality, I didn't say that word correctly at all, an abnormality to what we're sort of expecting here. So I think to me, it's just kind of a blip. I really wouldn't give this game a ton of weight. It was just a sort of a dip in his usage. You can see as well his target share and targets per out run way down in this game. It just happens. You're not going to have a steady linear graph for a rookie's first year, but we know rookies put their best stuff on tape back half of the season. Think Nick Chubb's rookie season. Think of ETN last year, Kenneth Walker last year. Think of Jonathan Taylor, his rookie year. Jonathan Taylor's rookie year, he was not good until like Week 8 on in the season. So Bijan Robinson to me is doing just fine. This is a great tweet from Ian at Dynasty_IM. Bijan Robinson is posting a 45% carry percentage, just like percentage of team carries, and 15.3% target share through the first 5 weeks. Only one rookie running back has ever topped that, Saquon Barkley. Second half, Bijan's about to win leagues, and I agree. So to me, he's still pacing fine. He's going to put up his best games in the second half of the year. He gets Washington this week, which is kind of a perfect time to swoop in before like an absolute monstrous game. This is a Washington defense that has allowed 30-plus points to their opponents in each of their last 4 games, Washington. So there should be a lot of points here, a lot of scoring. Bijan should get right back on track here. Now, for this video, to give you guys a little bit of, real-life examples of the trades to look out for, we are going to be using FantasyCalc. FantasyCalc.com. I have no affiliation with these guys, but it's a pretty cool setup where if you look here, you can see about the site and how to use it. We generate trade values. It essentially just scrapes like actual leagues. We're constantly scraping new trades from multiple fantasy sites. They're real trades. Now, are some of these trades dummy trades and in free leagues and they're just kind of nonsense? Yes, but it's kind of the best thing we have to just show exactly what's going on or what you can expect. And you can kind of just sift through like, oh, that's an overpay, that's an underpay, and kind of find the happy medium of what players should be going for. So when we put Bijan in here, we'll get some trades that do make some sense. Now, I would trade Debo straight up for Bijan. If I could trade Chris Olave for Bijan, I would. But I don't think that's on the table. Some other ones that I liked earlier, I did like this Brian Robinson. Brian Robinson, George Pickens, I would do that all day. There was one that was, I believe, like Brian Robinson and DJ Moore. Yeah, Brian Robinson and DJ Moore. I absolutely love that one. If you can take DJ Moore, I don't even have DJ Moore as a sell in this video. I know that I got cooked for having him as a sell last week. His volume is still unsustainable, but at this point, I think that he's a fine hold just in case if the Bears keep scoring points. But if you can take DJ Moore and a Brian Robinson or DJ Moore and a Dameon Pierce or one of these running backs in that range, Jerome Ford, Kyron Williams, and upgrade to Bijan, I 100% would. Some other trades I liked as well, Pittman and Mixon for Bijan Robinson. That feels a little bit steeper, but it is something that I would do. I think that's a little bit more of a more fair trade. I also like this Kenneth Walker in a little piece. Like if you can do Kenneth Walker and Hunter Henry, Kenneth Walker and a Logan Thomas, Kenneth Walker, who else kind of comes to mind? Kenneth Walker and Cole Kmet, Kenneth Walker and like a quarterback maybe, anything like that. Like I don't even hate Kenneth Walker per se, but if you can add something to Kenneth Walker to get to Bijan, I don't mind that at all. And then we also have a Kyron Williams one. Yeah, Kyron Williams and Jerome Ford, Kyron Williams and any like piece in this Jerome Ford range. If you can use that to upgrade to Bijan, I would. Now, I don't know. Again, that might not be available in your league. There's a good chance, however, as Bijan's content with sitting on him. But if they're starting to get impatient, I would kind of see what's going on there. Now, a trade that's a little bit more reasonable and a little bit more fetchable in most leagues. I don't know if fetchable is really a word. But we have Zay Flowers. And Zay Flowers really intrigues me, man. First of all, you guys are probably annoyed with me. We bring this up in pretty much every video. This is a chart from Jack Miller, who works at Establish the Run, I believe, right now. And he does great work where he showed rookie wide receivers, they stack on their production towards the end of the year. They just like sort of hit their stride towards the end, whether that means that they're running more routes by the end of the year, they're more efficient by the end of the year. Regardless, they score more points in the back half of the season. You draft rookie wide receivers for what they can be for you when games matter the most. Now, Zay Flowers had a massive week 1, 17.7 PPR points, had a ton of targets. Everyone was very excited. And he now sits at the wide receiver 35 in points per game on the year. And it seems like the hype has like really died down on him. But I would really be trying to buy. If you need a wide receiver and you have some dull wide receivers on your bench that don't have much upside, like if you have like, I would love to see if I could scrape up, the Jahan Dotsons of the world and like even Deontay Johnsons and see like just what you could add to those guys to get the Zay Flowers, because I do think an explosion is kind of imminent here, where the main concern with Zay Flowers that I had week 1, you can see really what you want to hone in on is the ADOT and air yard share. That first week, yes, 50% of the targets is insane, but on a 2.6 yard ADOT, it's not quite junk volume, but it's gadget volume. Those targets are worth much more if they're down the field, right? Because you can just add those yards with the average of the target, and those yards come with those catches. If no yards come with the catches and they're at the line of scrimmage, 2.6 yards downfield, you're relying on the receiver to have a yards per reception, right? So like your yards per reception can go from, depending on your ADOT, can go from like, 2.6 ADOT might mean that your yards per reception is like 7. But if you have like these last 2 games, he's been at 16 yard ADOT and a 13 yard ADOT, yards per reception goes up to like 16 yards per reception, right? So it can kind of offset where, okay, yes, your target share comes down a little bit, but each target is worth much more for your production. So that's what's very exciting about him, where first week you can see 2.6 ADOT, goes up to 12.6, which was nice. But then it goes back down to 3.5. But the last 2 games, he's been a downfield guy, or he's been mixing in downfield. And I think in a perfect world, you kind of come to a happy medium, or maybe his ADOT isn't quite, 16.8, but his ADOT can hover in like the 10 to 12 range, and you have a guy who can get the gadget stuff and then also work downfield. And that is where you have a recipe for like a true breakout here. And you can see as well, running 100% of the routes. Like he is the number 1 wide receiver here, which is really exciting. And I know it hasn't panned out just yet, but this is a guy who, yes, is the wide receiver 35 in points per game, but when we look at expected points per game, so based on your ADOT, your targets, your overall volume, how many points per game should you have, his expected points per game has him as the wide receiver 18 right now. So there's a huge discrepancy, and he's attached to Lamar Jackson. Now, Lamar Jackson, sure, it's like a run-heavy-ish offense, but this is one of the best starts to Lamar Jackson's to a Lamar Jackson season from a passing perspective. Now, I know the touchdowns and interceptions, like it hasn't, or the touchdowns really haven't been there, right? Just 4 passing touchdowns through 5 games at this point. But I think it's really been more of the wide receivers. And on top of that, he also has, I think, 4 rushing touchdowns to his 2019 MVP season through 5 games. I think he only had like 1 rushing touchdown. I could be wrong there. Don't quote me on that. But if we compare, again, Lamar Jackson's MVP season through 5 weeks to what Lamar Jackson's doing through 5 games this year, you have a better completion percentage, not that far off in terms of yards per attempt and passing yards. Touchdown interception 4-2 versus 11-5. Completion percentage over expectation. Lamar Jackson plus 4.8%, which is better than his MVP year. His passing grade is 86.7, which is a top 3 grade right now. Whereas his MVP season, he was at a 70.4. Big time throws. He has 9 big time throws so far to just 7 when he was the MVP. But he does have more turnover worthy plays. So what I'm trying to say is that he's not necessarily having a better passing season than he was as an MVP, but he is having a similar year passing to when he was an MVP and dominating in fantasy. So and arguably better in terms of just like completion percentage over expectation, passing grade, and just like being a true passer. Again, his receiving weapons have kind of let him down here, but Lamar's been good this year, which is what's very exciting for Zay Flowers because of this usage sticks, wide receiver 18 expected points per game, the rookie wide receiver, what they can be towards the back end of the season. To me, Zay Flowers is a top like 30 wide receiver rest of season at absolute worst, with upside to be like a top 15 guy down the stretch. So Zay Flowers, very exciting here. And you can get some pretty reasonable offers. Again, like there's not a ton of hype on him right now. Oh, didn't mean to trigger that. But there's not a lot of hype on him right now, Zay Flowers. A couple of the ones that stood out to me, or actually don't have any written down. But yeah, like if I can do Jerome Ford for Zay Flowers straight up, I would. I mean, I don't know how Brandon Cooks is there. But if you can do Dalton Schultz, I don't think Dalton Schultz is on the table. But if you can do Kmet, Logan Thomas, Henry, like even a Dalton Kincaid, I would do that all day. If I could do Derrick Henry, but instead of Rashad White, this was like Damian Pierce, like Derrick Henry for Zay Flowers and Damian Pierce, or I'm trying to think if who else is in that area. I don't think you could do Gibbs. What else? Yeah, Tank Dell and a piece for Zay Flowers. I actually don't hate that at all. Devontae Smith for Zay Flowers and Aaron Jones, I actually really like. I'm not necessarily thinking that Devontae Smith is a sell, but in terms of expected points per game right now, he's like wide receiver 3s. Like he's like in the wide receiver 36 area. So I wouldn't mind if I could sell Devontae Smith for Zay Flowers in an actual piece like Aaron Jones. I actually do love that. If I could turn Thielen into Zay Flowers, I don't think just take out Devontae Smith, but if I could turn Thielen to Zay Flowers, I would. What else sticks out? If I could turn, Chris Godwin into Zay Flowers and Watson, I would do that all day, but I don't know that that's on the table. This is actually a really fun move here where you take Amari DeMercado off of waivers, add him to Judy, and you get Flowers. Like if this is a Judy, a Dotson, anything like that, Sutton, I would actually do that all day. Maybe Michael Thomas as well. Adding a piece to Downs to get Flowers. I don't hate this one. I don't hate this one either. But yeah, like he's not very expensive right now, Zay Flowers. So if you can make something happen that like seems reasonable to me, I think that he's going to be a real difference maker at wide receiver down the stretch. Now after Zay Flowers, our next trade target here is Jakobi Meyers. And I think it's just time to accept that Jakobi Meyers is an every week wide receiver 2 at this point. I think I ended up putting him as like my wide receiver 27 or 29 in my rest of season rankings, which by the way, if you haven't already, make sure you check them out. I post them every Wednesday night. They are live right now. My rest of season rankings are on the Patreon, patreon.com/Ron Stewart. You can find the link in the description and the comment section down below. Simply just click it. It'll take you to patreon.com, and on there it has all my stuff. My weekly rankings, my rest of season rankings, exclusive start-sit streams every Sunday, waiver wire article every week. Get a bunch of stuff on there. But if you want to like make trades and kind of look at where I have players ranked versus where you can kind of get trades on the market, I think it's a pretty good resource to have. Now, Jakobi Meyers, it's not sexy, and I think that's why he's a buy. I think Jakobi Meyers still doesn't have that name value. He's still seen as Jakobi Meyers, and that's kind of fair. But, we now have a 4-game sample of Jakobi Meyers, like, being a stud. He's the wide receiver 10 in expected points per game right now, and none of it's fluky. Like, we have 4 games. He's not performing above or below the expectation. He's minus 0.2 on 17.8 expected points per game of volume in the same offense with Devontae Adams. And this is the reason that it works. As much as people like hate on Josh McDaniels, and I don't love the guy either, I can at least credit him for having a really condensed offense where you can see here they have the most condensed combined target share of their top 3 earners. Like this offense is very condensed. They're not throwing throwaway targets to, random guys that you'll see in some other offenses. Like you'll see all the way at the bottom, the Patriots, Washington, for whatever reason, Washington, like that's the funniest part, like the side rant, but look at the bottom of this chart and see that Washington and the Chiefs are literally right next to each other. And that's just Eric Bieniemy pretty much replicating that Chiefs offense in a scheme where Terry McLaurin and Jahan Dotson and Curtis Samuel will be the wide receiver 1 on the Chiefs. So it just makes absolutely no sense. But again, shout out to Josh McDaniels for realizing he doesn't have a bunch of depth. He has good players at the top of his team, Devontae Adams, Jakobi Meyers, and just really being cognizant of how he's distributing those touches. And they are very condensed among the top 3. And I say that to say that there's not a ton of junk volume in this offense. They are going to the contributors. And that's what is so exciting about Jakobi Meyers, is that because of this condensed target share, he can coexist as a wide receiver 2 next to Devontae Adams because the targets aren't going anywhere else, which is nice. So to me, he's like a borderline wide receiver 2 rest of the season. And that's perfect. Like right now you can buy him for pretty cheap. If we look at where he's going on Fantasy Calc, I haven't pressed search yet, but you have, I wouldn't do James Cook for him. If I could do a backup quarterback for Jakobi Meyers, I would. Uh, I don't mind doing like a Jerome Ford, like one of these waiver wire guys if you don't need that running back. Cam Akers for Jakobi Meyers, 100%. Like I'm saying, I think there's some deals out there where you can get them for like absolutely free. Like Zach Moss or Jerome Ford for Jakobi Meyers in a spot where I'm doing fine at running back. I would do that all day. You can do Cole Kmet. He's really not all that expensive. I mean, Judy for Downs and Jakobi Meyers, I actually love that. I have Jakobi Meyers straight up ahead of Judy. And the ones I saw yesterday when I was writing this down, I believe there was like a Dallas Goedert trade. I think I would do, if I had a tight end, like let's say I have Laporta and Dallas Goedert, I don't mind trading away a Dallas Goedert for Jakobi Meyers if I had to. Again, I think Zach Moss makes a ton of sense. I think I would even do like this Najee Harris for Jakobi Meyers. I think I would. And I think that there was also a Jahan Dotson one that I saw yesterday. That's probably in the next page. Yeah, I mean, Jahan Dotson for Jakobi Meyers straight up. I love that. Even if you had to add something to Jahan Dotson, I would absolutely love a deal like that. Now, moving on to our next player, our next must-buy trade candidate, we have TJ Hockenson. Now, I will say, the theme of these next few buys are for 4-1 and 5-0 teams. So if you're doing really well, I think these are some nice moves to make. And I think with TJ Hockenson, there is a lot of buzz right now around, KJ Osborne and Jordan Addison getting big bumps with Justin Jefferson out of town. But it feels like Hawkinson's kind of getting slept on. Like it feels like Hawkinson's not really, correct me if I'm wrong, but it feels like Hawkinson's not really in the center of those talks about how he gets a huge bump as well. So I wouldn't mind sort of kicking the tires on Hockenson, see if you can kind of get, the luxury of getting an elite tight end. Maybe they're down bad and they don't have the luxury to have value stored up in Hockenson, and maybe they should just stream somebody on waivers like a Logan Thomas and, trade for flex pieces, running backs, wide receivers from you. Now, Ben Wolby is a guy, I hope I'm saying his name correctly, but he does projections over at the 33rd team. And you can see that TJ Hockenson right now is like next to Kelsey in terms of targets, volume, and that's kind of beautiful. He says Hockenson might usurp Kelsey as tight end one if he can create yak and touchdowns. He's projected to lead Minnesota with 9 targets in Jefferson's absence. And that's what's pretty exciting is that with Jefferson gone, I mean, Hawkinson's going to be the number one option in a passing offense at a second in passing yards right now and first in passing touchdowns. And they have no running game to fall back on. So Hawkinson's going to absorb a good chunk of that. And the touchdown stuff hasn't been there this year. He has just 1 end zone target in 5 games this year. Last year, he had 6 end zone targets in 9 games. So touchdowns are coming, a little bit more efficiency is coming in that department. And this week he gets a huge bounce back spot versus the Bears. The Bears are one of 4 teams right now allowing 30 or more offensive points per game to their opponents over the entire season. So a weak defense. Hockenson should be able to feast there. Now, if we look at sort of what he's trading for, it's not all that expensive. Like I would do Brian Robinson for him pretty easily. This Jeff Wilson, Evan Ingram one's actually very interesting. I think I would do that as well. Jakobi Meyers and Zay Jones, I mean, like, yes, please. If I could do Joe Mixon for TJ Hockenson, even just straight up, I think I would. But if I could do, it's close. Mixon for Hockenson straight up is close. But Mixon for Hockenson in a piece all day. We just talked about how much I love Jakobi Meyers, but if you could turn Jakobi Meyers in a depth tight end into Hockenson, I would. Musgrave and Jerry Jeudy for Hockenson, I mean, all day I would do that. I saw some trades yesterday as well. Pitts plus a Gabe Davis for TJ Hockenson. I think I could do that for sure. I saw a Laporta plus deal. Yeah, Laporta and like Tyler Boyd to get Hockenson, I would. I like Sam Laporta, but I do think that he's worth seeing if you can upgrade him to Hockenson. Godwin straight up for Hockenson, I would do. I did see a Thielen type of move as well, where you can see, yeah, I mean, Thielen and a guy like Jalen Warren for TJ Hockenson, I think I would do that as well. So I would just kick the tires, see if it's really clicked for the owner, what he's sitting on, because TJ Hockenson has an argument to be the tight end 2 rest of season, with the upside to even be more than that, where he could like go toe-to-toe with Kelsey. Now, if you want to speculate about potentially like Kirk Cousins getting traded or whatever, I guess that's sort of in the range of outcomes, but the National Football League is so boring. Like, maybe in the NBA that happens, but I would be shocked, man. I would be shocked if he got traded, but we'll see. I mean, maybe I'll look like an idiot. Regardless, next up, our next trade target here. Now, next up, we have Christian Watson here as a nice little buy again. This is for a little bit of a luxury buy if you're like 4-1, 5-0. I don't mind the idea of buying him. He's on bye. He's not playing this week. There's a chance that whoever has him like really needs a win here. And I think that's when you can kind of swoop in and grab Christian Watson off of a team that's probably not doing too well, or maybe they're not doing too well. Now, Christian Watson, he's a decent trade right now because he's just the wide receiver 27 with 11.1 points per game. He returned last week, had just 11.6 points. He hasn't had a truly breakout game here. But I do like what we've seen so far from Christian Watson, where you can see in this last game, this was, I believe, the Monday night game, he played 49-58 snaps, 39 wide, 9 slot, 1 in line. He had 29 routes on 34 love dropbacks. That's perfect. 7 targets for a solid 23% target share, and he had a 26.7 yard ADOT. So those valuable targets are still there. He's now back in the mix. He gets a bye to truly become healthy, and then he comes back and should be good to go. Now, people are going to say, well, Jordan Love sucks, whatever. Here's the thing. This offense is at least good enough to support wide receivers, and that's really all we need, where they're about league average in terms of offensive efficiency and in terms of expected points per game going to the wide receivers. This is a great chart from Hayden Winks, and you can just see how much volume and fantasy points are available to the wide receivers. 9th in the NFL in expected points per game to wide receivers. That's a more than fine environment for Christian Watson to walk into, assuming he can be the top target earner on that team. So when we look at sort of trade options for Christian Watson, I feel like he's not going for anything crazy in terms of price tag. Christian Watson, you can get him for sort of reasonable prices here. Or if you look on Fantasy Calc, he's going for T. Higgins for Christian Watson's close to me, but I don't think I would do that. Pacheco for Christian Watson and a running back I think is actually pretty fun. I don't mind. Chris Godwin for Christian Watson and Peace. I don't know that that's on the table. We just had Jakobi Meyers as a buy, but if you could turn Jakobi Meyers into Christian Watson, I would. What else sticks out? Jameson Williams and Zach Moss. That's a joke, but yes, of course. Judy for Watson, I would do that. If I had to do Judy in a small piece for Christian Watson, I would do that all day. Najee Harris for Christian Watson, yes, please. I had some trades that I circled yesterday as well, where we have Tank Dell straight up for Christian Watson, yes, please. Ford straight up for Christian Watson, yes. Bijan Robinson for Christian Watson and a depth running back, I think I would do that as well. What else sticks out? I think we had a Goddard one too. Yeah, Goddard for Watson straight up, I would. And then that Judy for Watson, I would do that as well. So you can get him for decently cheap, and maybe you can even sort of leverage the bye week and get even more of a discount than some of those trades we're showing here. Now, our last buy candidate, again, luxury buy. If you are looking good, 4-1, 5-0, and you can afford it, right? You can afford to hold a player on your team that's not going to score points for a while. I do think Devin Achane is very much a buy. I think if he was healthy right now, he would be a top 6 running back rest of season. He's been that good. I think he makes sense a lot of sense as a buy if you are a team that can afford to wait for him to come back. There's a decent chance that whoever has him maybe is down bad and they need wins and they need running backs. If you can sort of swoop in and buy Devin Achane on the low, assuming that you can, you have a roster that's good enough that can withstand holding him on the bench, I think you 100% should, because this is a tweet from Jesse Morris. He said, Devin Achane is expected to return, which sort of rules out a lot of really brutal injuries like ACL tear, meniscal tear, MCL tear, significant cartilage injury. Eligible to return in Week 11. He could be the number 1 scoring running back in the fantasy playoffs. He was behind just McCaffrey with 25.4 points per game here. It doesn't take a genius to tell you, Devon Achane has been a monster. In this chart, EPA per rush, rushing yards over expected per rush. No one's even really touching Devon Achane when it comes to rushing upside right now. Again, he could be the top scoring running back in the playoffs, so if you can make that happen, I think you absolutely should, just for that late season upside. And if we look for what he's trading for right now, people are offloading him for pretty cheap here across the board. Drake London, James Conner, that's literally free. McLaurin for Devon Achane, I would do that as well. If I could do, James Cook for Devon Achane straight up, I would do that as well. What else? Zach Moss and Jeff Wilson, 100%. Jerome Ford and Zach Moss, yes. What else sticks out? Kenneth Gainwell on a quarterback, sure. Brian Robinson, Jakobi Meyers. This is close. This is probably the most I would spend on Devin Achane, but I think I would. We also have some other ones I wrote down yesterday. James Cook for Achane straight up, I would. We had a Thielen one here. Yeah, Thielen for Achane straight up, I would as well. Javonte for Achane straight up, I would do that as well. So, you can get him for relatively cheap here. So just make sure you sort of kick the tires. If you're a team that's in good standing and you don't need wins right now and you can afford to hold Achane on your bench, I definitely see what's going on with the Achane owner and his team. But our next sell target, so this is moving from, we had buys, now we're moving to our sell candidates here. First sell, a guy who to me has kind of been off the radar. But we're going to talk about DK Metcalf here as a decent sell. Now, DK Metcalf is a guy to me who's a sell because he carries a ton of name. Everyone knows who DK Metcalf is. He's the wide receiver 21 in points per game. He's like a very clear, like high-end wide receiver 2 in the market's eye to me. And that's a little bit tough. Like his volume is very shaky right now. Expected points per game again. So this is just your volume, your ADOT, your red zone targets, all of that. He is at 10.8 expected points per game at wide receiver 47 in this range of like Gabe Davis. Like he is genuinely a glorified Gabe Davis right now. You can see Gabe Davis 10.9 expected points per game, 14.8 points per game. Metcalf 10.8 expected points per game, 14.2 points per game. That's somebody that should be valued as a wide receiver 3, not a wide receiver 2. Now, of course, expected points per game could climb up, but you do have JSN in the mix who could earn more volume than he already has. So it's tough. He's just getting Gabe Davis treatment. And if I had startable wide receivers through the flex that I didn't really need DK Metcalf, I would see if I could sort of move him away or if I could add a piece to DK Metcalf and tier up to one of like your CeeDee Lambs, Amon-Ra St. Brown, AJ Browns, anybody in that area. I think I absolutely would. Like if you can look at trades here for DK Metcalf on Fantasy Calc, they're nothing too crazy in terms of like what you can get. I'm trying to see what else. I mean, this is actually a spot where if you were down bad with Achane, I don't mind Achane and Metcalf for CeeDee Lamb. Metcalf or David Montgomery, I think I would do that. Metcalf and David Montgomery for Austin Eckler. I actually love that one. Like that's the type of stuff I'd be looking to do. Metcalf and another piece to go up to like your Eckler, like somebody who'd be a first round pick in fantasy right this second. Metcalf and Saquon for Kupp feels steep, but I actually don't hate that a ton. But that is pretty steep. Waddle and Metcalf for AJ Brown, I would do. Metcalf and Garrett Wilson for Keenan Allen, I think I would actually do that as well. Metcalf and, again, these 2-for-1s I think make the most sense with Metcalf, where you add somebody to Metcalf. Yeah, like Metcalf and George Kittle for Travis Kelce I think makes a lot of sense. Metcalf and Rachaad White for Austin Eckler, yes, all day. Metcalf and Ridley for, healthy Jefferson for sure. Metcalf and Alexander Madison for AJ Brown, like stuff like that is what I'd be looking for. Like this right here, I think is what the play is when it comes to DK Metcalf. Now he's not like a crazy must sell. If you have him on your team, he can stay there. But I'm just saying his usage so far has been a bit concerning, and I don't know how it really changes in his favor. After that, a sell target we have here is Derrick Henry. Again, he was a sell target last week, but his outlook continues just to look worse. This is now his second lowest snap share on the year, or actually no, third lowest snap share on the year, 59%. But the rush attempt share is really concerning here. 62% of the rush attempt share, lowest on the entire season. That's not good. So now he's ceding not only snaps to Tyjae Spears, he's ceding even more carries. Like, it's just bad. He's currently, right now, Derrick Henry, Tyjae Spears continues to carve out more and more volume every week. And Derrick Henry is the RB20 on RB23 expected points per game volume. So, he's an RB2. Like, that's really just what it is. He's an RB2 right now with probably like some boom bust upside. And I think that he's probably treated in a lot of leagues as an RB1. And if I could get an RB1 price on him, I would sell him all day long, Derrick Henry, where, again, like he's getting RB2 usage. He's getting squeezed out by Tyjae Spears. He's old. It's a bad offense. And, Derrick Henry for Kenneth Walker all day long. I don't know if you can hear Winnie, but she's going absolutely insane. Derrick Henry for Deebo Samuel. I think I would do that as well. Derrick Henry for... I'm trying to see if there's anywhere you could like add to Derrick Henry and get a stud. Derrick Henry for Devontae Adams all day. Derrick Henry for Amon-Ra St. Brown. Even without Rachaad White, I would do that. Derrick Henry and Calvin Ridley for Keenan Allen, I think is probably too much. Derrick Henry and Tyler Lockett for AJ Brown, I actually would do that 100%. That's actually sort of exactly what I'm talking about here in terms of what I'd be looking for. Anything else stick out to me? Derrick Henry for JT and Metcalf all day, but I really don't know that that's on the table whatsoever. I saw one for Andrews here. Yeah, Derrick Henry for Andrews straight up. All day I would do that. Derrick Henry for Cooper Kupp straight up. Obviously. And then Derrick Henry for Josh Jacobs straight up. Obviously. But I don't know that those are very realistic. So if I could take Derrick Henry in a piece and level up to, say, Bijan. Like, can you do Derrick Henry in a piece for Bijan, Pollard, Eckler, Kupp, AJ Brown, Devontae Adams, any of those guys? I think I would try and kick the tires here. Now, our last sell target you guys are going to absolutely hate, and it's Sam Laporta. Now, I just want to make it clear, all right, in my draft guide that I release every summer, he was a draft target of mine. I have a ton of Sam Laporta. We love Sam Laporta on this channel. He was in my must draft sleepers video this year. I have a ton of him. We did this with Nico Collins last week. I called him a sell. A lot of guys in the comments were very annoyed and very mad, and then he dropped a dud, and you likely missed your sell opportunity. What I'm going to say with Sam Laporta is that he is not a must sell. If you have him on your team, you don't have to sell him for anything. What I'm trying to say is that if I had Sam Laporta, I would reach out to everybody in my league that has Mark Andrews, TJ Hockenson, Travis Kelce. I would approach them with Sam Laporta in a piece and ask how big the piece would have to be to get to that tight end, and I would go from there. I would reach out to all three of those owners, maybe even just fire out offers. That's all I'm saying. I do not think that you should sell Sam Laporta for any other reason than to see how expensive it would be to tier up to one of the big three. Because right now, Sam Laporta's volume is fine, but it's also a little bit unsustainable in terms of how he's performing, all right? Look at expected points game for these tight ends. Of course, Kelce, Andrews, Hockenson at the top, and you have Sam Laporta at tight end 8. Now, he is a rookie that's going to go up as the year goes on, but he, as of right now, the volume doesn't match up with those guys, but his points per game does. So what does that say to me? Clear sell opportunity, but again, rookies stack their stats back end of the year. So it's not to say that Sam Laporta can't, get pretty close to those elite tight ends, but if you can add to him to just get one of the elite tight ends already, I think you should look into it, because it's not all that crazy to kind of see, what you can do to get that deal done. Now, if we look at just trade offers here, I think we're just going to do, what the hell is that? I think we're just going to do this, where we just sort of like type in, we'll just type in Kelce here. Has there been any? Wow, there has been. Laporta and Raheem Mostert is pretty expensive for Kelce, but I think I would. Laporta and Ramondre Stevenson for Kelce, I would. Nothing else has happened that's too recent, though. But these two, I think, are exactly the kind of deals that I'm talking about. Now, let's look at Andrews as well. Nothing, really. But, I mean, of course, same thing again, like Laporta and like a James Conner or a running back in this, sort of area, I would. We also have, let's also look at Hockenson, if any Hockenson deal has gone down. Tyler Boyd and Sam Laporta for Hockenson all day. I really don't think it would take a ton on top of Laporta to get to Hockenson, is kind of what this is telling me. But yeah, that's exactly what I would do. Anything else doesn't really stick out to me. I would only trade Sam Laporta without one of those elite tight ends in return if I already had a pretty sweet tight end next to Sam Laporta. If I somehow had Hockenson and Laporta, then from there, sell Laporta. But that's really the only other scenario. Again, I'm only selling Laporta. Again, I love Laporta. He's great. We drafted a ton of him. But this is a pretty clear sell high window, and I would use it to see if I could get an elite tight end that's already established and can give you a difference-making point total every single week. Now, that is going to do it for us today. I hope you guys enjoyed. That was, 9 or 10 trade targets. Some buys, some sells. Hope that helped you guys out on this Thursday morning. Hope that this helped you, offer trades, wheel and deal today. Again, as always, if you want my complete rest of season rankings, they are live, ready to go, fresh off the press on the Patreon, patreon.com/Ron Stewart. You get my rest of season rankings. My weekly rankings are coming out today. You get my waiver wire article where I go through my exact fab recommendations for every single player. You get my exclusive start sit streams every Sunday. I'm having dynasty rankings that are coming out this weekend, so we have a lot going on over there. Make sure you check it out. But if not, I do appreciate those of you guys that just watch the videos, subscribe, like the videos, all of that. It helps the boy out a ton. So continue to do so. But anyways, I appreciate you guys. And I will see you all. And I'll see you guys in the next one.
Stones, like this froze, ice cold,